Alright guys, welcome back to another video. Gonna be talking about Sing and Zootopia and how creativity really impacts a film. So one of the things that's really been cool about animation for a while now is that these animators can take any concept and literally make a world out of that. And they can make it look good, whether if it's CGI or like stop motion or hand-drawn. What's really exciting is just how creative these animators get with these worlds and the design, all the looks and the details that go into the film. Like, you know, the Lego movie, super creative. It was just neat with the explosions were even made out of Lego pieces. And then even something old school like, you know, Nightmare Before Christmas, just the creativity that went into the thought process of personifying and making a whole land out of these holidays. And this is one of the reasons why I really like the movie Zootopia, because Zootopia, they take a very cliche concept, you know, a world filled with anthropomorphic animals. That's basically almost every Disney movie. But they take this cliche concept and they get very creative with it, almost to the point where they make something completely original and new. But then you take a movie like Sing, has the same concept, you know, anthropomorphic animals, and they didn't really get that creative with it. So I'm going to compare and contrast the two throughout the vid, just to get my point across. All right, here we go. So first, let's take a look at how creative the worlds of these films were. Let's do Sing first. Let's ask the question, did Sing have creativity in their world? And for the most part, no, there was not a lot of creativity in the world. If you're just looking at the world, when I say the world, I'm talking about the atmosphere. In this case, it's their city that they're in. Nothing really sticks out. There's nothing about this city that actually sticks out. There's nothing super noticeable. There's nothing that's out of the ordinary. There's nothing that really pulls the viewer in. It had regular buildings, regular streets, just regular everything. And I feel like it really lacked creativity. And there's actually this very helpful article online where it's this interview with the director, Garth Jennings. And I'm sorry, I'm going to be a real punk about this. I'm really going to pick on the movie. I apologize in advance. So one of the questions in this article is, where did you find the inspiration to create this entirely new world? And he actually has a reasoning why they didn't really get creative with the world. And basically he says straight up, the world itself was less interesting to me. And what he goes on to say is that he wanted to put more focus on the characters and on the theater. He wanted to make the theater more interesting than the outside world and pull the viewer in. A couple things about that. First of all, I agree. You don't have to have this visually entertaining world in every scene. However, I think if you're going to sacrifice visual creativity, then that means you should put more focus onto other things. And those things should be improved. Those things should stand out because they had more work on it. And what the director was saying was that he was going to put more focus on the characters and into the theater. But to me, the characters seemed like they didn't really have a lot of work put into them at all. They seemed like very cliche characters. Their design and their personalities just seemed very cliche. They were all kind of predictable. And the theater, I mean, the EDC squids, that was a very cool part. That was creative, but it was only a small part. And at the end, with the climax, when everyone was doing their songs, I mean, I felt like the theater still didn't get that much love, creative-wise. So overall, the world of Sing, with the theater and with the visual aspect of how the world looked, how the atmosphere felt, it didn't feel creative, it didn't feel immersive. It was kind of bland. There really wasn't much else to make up for that. But then you take a look at Zootopia, and there's this small scene when Judy hops on the train, and it just kind of gives you this short tour, a very short tour of Zootopia. And within that short scene, it had way more creativity than the movie Sing had in its entirety. When the train was going, first of all, it hit this bridge. And right off the bat, this bridge already stands out. It looks unique. So already there's creativity implemented just in a simple bridge. And you keep going and you find out that Zootopia is made up of different districts that represent different environments. So first you go to the desert, and then you see these camels racing, and then as you go throughout, you see that it's a city in the desert, and that there are buildings made out of like the desert rocks. And then you keep going, and it just changes into the tundra, you know, Tundra Town. And it's icy and it's snowing, and they have a fish market. Then you keep going, and then you come out of this waterfall, and it's into this amazing rainforest town, and there's tree houses in the rainforest. Just right there, they have so much creativity just within that scene. You just feel like a kid at Disneyland, you know, you just want to see each part and explore it. That's what creativity does. It just pulls the viewer in and makes it way more of an experience. And so with the design of the world, when it comes to these two movies, with the film Sing, it looks like they just said, hey, let's have a city and fill it with animals. With Zootopia, they said, hey, let's have a city and make it for animals. All right, let's go to the next round, and it's gonna be about the creativity of the characters. And specifically with these movies, you know, when you have characters and your movie's gonna be about animals, well, then you're going to have to assign each character the animal that they are going to be. So anyways, going back to Sing, why did Buster Moon have to be a koala? Why did Mina have to be an elephant? Why did Mike have to be a mouse? There is another question on that same article. How did you decide which animals your characters were going to be? And the director's thought process with this was that he started with the personality of the character, and he worked his way back to find animals that would match that character. And that's a great way to pick animals. However, I feel like his animal choices were just very random, very mismatched, kind of. His explanation for choosing a koala for Buster Moon's character was that he wanted a small animal but with a lot of energy. But a koala seems like a very, very random choice. I mean, to you guys, maybe a koala is a perfect choice, but to me, when I think of a small animal with a lot of energy, I think the cliche answer is a squirrel. So yeah, I feel like with the characters, there wasn't much creativity behind why they were what they were. It didn't really make sense. At the same time, it doesn't really have to make sense. You want Buster Moon to be a koala? Make him a koala. You know, who cares? All right, so let's take a look at Zootopia. With Zootopia, their animal choices were very creative, and they were also very purposeful, because the types of animals they had, and the world, and the plot, and the characters, everything worked together. If you look at the story of Zootopia, it has to do with overcoming like a stereotyping culture, like learning not to stereotype others.
There's never been a bunny cop.
No.
Bunnies don't do that.
Never.
Never.
If you thought we would ever trust a fox without a muzzle.
So with the animal choices, not just with the major characters, but also with the minor characters as well, their theme was that they're going to place animals in certain careers and certain roles based on their stereotypes. So like you had the sloth in the DMV, you had the lion as the mayor, you had the wolves as the guards at night. You know, and there's many more throughout the film. But these were great choices that were smart, they were funny, but they also went with the plot. And then you had the main characters, you had, you know, the rabbit and the fox. Their role was to go against what their stereotype was and help other animals overcome this stereotyping culture. So first of all, you have Judy Hopps. They're looking at Judy Hopps' character, and they're finding out, okay, what animal she is going to be. Well, the character is supposed to join the police force, which is filled with these large and like strong beasts, right? So they're like, hey, let's make Judy Hopps a rabbit, and a rabbit whose stereotype is supposed to be small and weak and defenseless is going to prove them wrong and help them overcome this stereotyping culture.
Oh, that poor little buddy's gonna get eaten alive.
And then you have someone like Nick. Again, they really got creative with his character, where he's like almost the exact opposite of Judy, where Judy is trying to fight how the world sees rabbits. Nick has actually, through bitterness and anger and through his past experiences, has accepted the way the world sees him.
If the world's only gonna see a fox as shifty and untrustworthy, there's no point in trying to be anything else.
And his challenge throughout the film is to let go of that hurt and not accept how the world sees foxes and actually become who he wants to be ever since he was a kid. And then you got my favorite and the most simple, you know, one is Clawhauser, the fat cheetah. So these characters were super creative, very purposeful, and it just made it way more fun to watch. So just to sum it up, hopefully you made it to the end of the video so I could clarify some stuff. Sing, it was I enjoyed it. It's an enjoyable movie with the music. There are a lot of good things to say about it. It's a fun movie to watch. However, compared to Zootopia and compared to what it could have been, it has a lot of potential to be creative, to be this fun movie, but it just wasn't. It was boring. It was a little bland. It was a little predictable, and therefore didn't really stand out as much. But then with Zootopia, it just stood out way more. It was much more of an experience. It just pulled you in. It was way more memorable. You know, they weren't just creative with the design of the world and how visually everything was, but they were creative with the characters, the plots, the story, just the atmosphere, just how this world worked. Movies like Zootopia really set the bar when it comes to making a animated movie about a fun concept, because there's a lot of superficial things and they think that it will be a great movie because of those things, like, oh, it'll have all these pop stars, it'll have pop music. But then that's as far as it goes. I think these guys, when it comes to animating a film, I think they need to implement creativity. Creativity is not just how things look, it's how everything else works together. It's the purpose of why things are what they are. Or just make a movie about emojis because you got, you know, tons of money. Thanks for listening. Really appreciate it. Thanks for watching. And yeah, peace.
She hustled you good!